I didn't realize how much I was ignoring until the cracks became impossible to miss. At first, I thought I was just overthinking it. Claire and I had been married for 7 years, and everything had always been fine. But then, small things began slipping past me, things that didn't add up. It started with her phone. She'd take it into another room when it rang or step away from the table to answer texts. It seemed normal at first. But soon, I noticed the excuses. "It's work," she'd say when I asked who she was texting. The defensiveness in her tone made me second-guess myself. Then came the nights out. At first, it was just a dinner here and there with colleagues. But as time went on, she'd come home later, with a faint smell of perfume that wasn't hers. She'd be tipsy, too much for a simple dinner, but she'd laugh it off like nothing was wrong. I asked her once, "Had fun tonight?" "Yeah, just a work thing," she answered, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Something was off. I tried to push the thought aside, told myself I was just stressed. But every day, it became harder to ignore. It wasn't just the phone or the late nights. It was the way she would pull away when I tried to connect. A little more distant, a little more absent. She was there physically, but emotionally, it was like she was somewhere else. Then, one night, I cracked. Claire had a networking event. She said it would be quick, maybe 2 hours at most. But I felt uneasy. I couldn't explain it, just a feeling gnawing at me. I told myself to relax, but my mind kept racing. Eventually, I found myself standing in our living room, staring at her phone on the kitchen counter. I shouldn't have looked. I knew it was wrong, but I did it anyway. The first text message that caught my eye was from an unknown number. "I miss you. Can't wait to see you again." My heart dropped. I kept reading, each message worse than the last. Intimate words, private jokes. There was no mistaking it. Something was going on. But then, I found the message that stopped me cold. It was from Claire herself, sent just hours before she'd left. "I can't wait to see you tonight. I'm counting the minutes until I'm in your arms again." I could barely breathe. Who was this person? Who was she seeing behind my back? But then, I saw the name. It was a name I recognized, and it made everything I thought I knew feel like a lie. I stared at the name. Roger. It hit me like a punch to the gut. Roger was an older guy, mid-50s, well beyond Claire's usual circle. He'd always been around at work events, but I never imagined him as anything more than just a colleague. Seeing his name on Claire's phone was a shock. I scrolled through the messages, hoping I'd misread something, that maybe I was just jumping to conclusions. But the more I read, the clearer it became. These weren't casual exchanges. They were intimate, filled with longing. One message from him read, "I can't stop thinking about you. You're all I want." Claire's reply, "I feel the same. This has to stay between us, though." My head spun. How long had this been going on? I thought I knew my wife. But this? This was beyond anything I could comprehend. Roger wasn't some random guy. He was her coworker, someone I'd known by name, but never thought much of. The age gap alone seemed absurd, yet here they were, exchanging these personal, flirtatious messages. I tried to make sense of it. Was it my fault? Had I become so caught up in my own life, in my work, that I didn't notice her slipping away? Maybe. But then again, how could I have missed something like this? She was still affectionate with me, still came home, kissed me goodnight. I wanted to confront her, to explode with all the questions and anger, but I couldn't. Not yet. I had to think, to understand. Maybe it was a mistake, a lapse in judgment, something brief. But something in my gut told me this wasn't just a fling. This was something serious. The rational side of me wanted to demand answers, but the other side, the side that loved her, that didn't want to lose everything, told me to hold off. I needed the truth. I needed to know how deep this went before I acted. I didn't speak to her that night. I kept everything locked inside, pretending nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen, about what Claire had become. And then I thought of Roger. What was it about him? What did he offer her that I didn't? I couldn't wrap my mind around it, but I knew this wasn't something I could ignore for much longer. The storm was coming, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. The days dragged on after that. Claire was as sweet as ever, but there was an undercurrent of tension between us. It wasn't anything I could pin down, but it was there. She was still affectionate, still the woman I had married, but there was a distance I couldn't bridge. The texts from Roger kept haunting me, like an itch I couldn't scratch. I kept playing it cool. I didn't want her to suspect anything. Not yet. I needed to figure this out on my own. I had to know more before I confronted her. But every time she smiled at me, kissed me good morning. I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't really know her anymore. She continued to go out, to attend more events. Each time she came back later, a little more distant, a little more different. I started asking myself, was this the woman I'd married? Or was I just seeing what I wanted to see? One afternoon, I decided to take a chance. I checked her phone again. I knew I was crossing a line, but at that point, I didn't care. The messages were still there. But now, I found something new. A text that sent a cold shiver through me. I'll make it worth your while when we meet. The words were simple, but the implication was clear. Claire wasn't just talking to Roger about work. She wasn't just being flirtatious. She was planning something physical. And in that moment, it hit me like a freight train. I had never felt so betrayed, so disgusted. I wanted to confront her right then and there, to drag her into the light and make her explain herself. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling completely helpless. I had no idea how to handle this. Was it possible she had been seeing Roger for months? Maybe even longer? How long had I been living a lie? And still, the questions piled up. Why him? Why Roger? What did she see in him? Was it the age difference that excited her? Was he offering her something I couldn't? I wanted answers. I needed them. But I couldn't just confront her with nothing. I needed more. So, I kept my distance, stayed quiet. But every time she left the house, I could feel my stomach twist in knots. I couldn't trust her anymore. I wasn't sure I ever could again. It was Friday night when I felt the air finally crack. Claire had another networking event, the same line she'd used every time. At this point, I didn't ask. I knew. I stayed home, trying to focus on work, but my mind kept circling back to her. To the texts. To Roger. The silence between us felt heavier with each passing day, and I could feel it like a weight in the room. By 11 p.m., she still wasn't back. I tried to keep my mind occupied, but it was useless. Every tick of the clock seemed louder. My phone buzzed, a pointless email. Another hour passed. At 12:15 a.m., the door clicked open. She walked in, fumbling with her purse, trying to act casual. I stayed where I was, standing in the living room, waiting for her to look up. She didn't at first, focused on something in her hands, but then she caught my stare. That hesitation. Her eyes shifted just slightly. Hey, she said, a little too bright. Sorry I'm late. It went longer than expected. I didn't respond right away. I just watched her, my mind racing. There was something in the way she avoided my gaze. Something that wasn't right. I finally asked, where were you? She hesitated for a beat too long. Just out with some colleagues, she said, her voice a little too smooth. She quickly moved past me, heading for the bedroom. I followed, unable to stay still. I stood by the doorway, watching her change into more comfortable clothes. She kept her back to me, but I couldn't ignore the tension that hung between us. Finally, I spoke. Is everything okay, Claire? She froze, just for a moment, then turned to face me. Yeah, everything's fine. Why wouldn't it be? Her tone was defensive, her smile tight. I didn't reply. The words were there, but they stuck in my throat. I could feel myself losing control. She knew it. I wasn't pretending anymore. As I stood there, her phone buzzed on the dresser. She didn't look at it, but I saw her eyes dart to it, the slight twitch of her hand betraying her. I knew who it was. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but I didn't. Instead, I stayed silent, watching her, and in that moment, she knew. She knew I knew. The next few days felt like I was walking through a fog. Claire acted as if nothing had changed, like nothing was wrong. She was still affectionate, still the woman I married, but the distance was undeniable. I knew she was hiding something, and every smile, every kiss felt like a mask. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was just playing along in a game I didn't understand. I tried to keep my distance. She had her work, I had mine. But the unease was always there, lingering between us, thickening the air with each passing hour. I couldn't bring myself to confront her, not yet. I wasn't ready to hear what she might say, to hear her lie, to see her deny everything. But I was also terrified of what I might learn if I waited too long. Claire kept leaving for those networking events. I couldn't help but wonder if it was the same lie every time. Her phone buzzed a few more times, always when she was out of sight. I couldn't ignore it. I knew it was Roger. I knew he was the one pulling her away from me, inch by inch. But why? What did he have that I didn't? I couldn't focus on anything else. My work, the things that used to keep me busy, felt meaningless now. It It was like I was walking through the motions, waiting for something to change, to break. But it didn't. Not yet. Every time I tried to talk to Claire, I got the same tight smile, the same vague answers. And the worst part? She didn't seem to care. She didn't seem to notice the cracks between us, or if she did, she didn't want to acknowledge them. That's when I realized how much I had been missing, how much I had let slip by while I focused on everything else. I hadn't been paying attention to her, to us. She'd been drifting for months, and I had been too blind to see it. I had a decision to make. I couldn't keep living like this, pretending that everything was okay when it clearly wasn't. I needed answers. But how could I get them? How could I confront her when she had already built this wall between us? I spent hours thinking about it, pacing, reading through the texts again. They were all there, all the evidence I needed. But there was one thing I didn't understand. Why him? Why Roger? What made him so special to her? I wasn't sure what I was waiting for anymore. But I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. The storm was coming, and I knew it would hit harder than I was ready for. It wasn't until the following weekend that I finally decided to act. Claire had gone out again, to another event. I was tired of waiting, tired of pretending. I couldn't keep sitting here, watching her slip away from me, unsure of what was happening. I had to confront her, get the truth. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. It buzzed once, then again. Another text from her. My heart raced. I couldn't avoid this anymore. I needed to know what she was up to. The messages had become a silent anchor, pulling me deeper into a place I didn't want to be. But now, I was ready to dive in, ready to confront it head on. I waited for her to come home, my mind already replaying the things I would say, the questions I would ask. I was angry, furious, even. But there was something else too, something I couldn't quite name. Fear. Fear of what I might hear. By the time Claire walked in, it was already past midnight. She closed the door quietly, but I could hear the hesitation in her footsteps. She was expecting me to say something. I could feel it. I didn't say a word as she walked in. I just stood there, watching her. She froze when she saw me. "You're still up?" she asked, like she hadn't already known. Like this wasn't something that had been hanging over us for days now. I stood up. "We need to talk." Her face shifted just slightly, the mask of casualness slipping for a moment. "About what?" "About you and Roger," I said, keeping my voice steady, even though my pulse was pounding in my ears. Her eyes widened for a second, then quickly shifted away, as if she could pretend she didn't hear me. "What about him?" I didn't hesitate. "Don't lie to me, Claire. I know what's been going on." She looked at me, her eyes avoiding mine for a moment before settling back, a mix of guilt and something else in her gaze. "What do you mean?" I felt my anger bubbling up, but I kept it in check. "The texts, the lies, the late nights. It's all been building up. Don't act like I haven't noticed." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, she spoke in a soft voice, barely above a whisper. "It's not what you think." My heart dropped. "Then what is it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she just looked at me, a look in her eyes that made my stomach twist. It was the look of someone who knew they'd been caught, but didn't want to admit it. Not yet. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Claire didn't say a word, her eyes darting away from mine. I waited, the tension growing in the space between us, the truth hanging there, unspoken. Finally, she exhaled, almost like a sigh of relief. "It's complicated." I took a step closer, my voice low but sharp. "Complicated? You're seeing him, Claire. This isn't complicated, it's simple. You're cheating on me." She flinched, but quickly regained her composure, standing straighter. "It's not like that." I shook my head, frustration rising. "Then how is it? You've been sneaking around, sending him messages, telling him you can't wait to be with him. How else am I supposed to see it?" She hesitated, her eyes flicking to the floor, before meeting mine again. "It just happened. I didn't plan for this." "Then what?" I pressed. "What's going on? Why him? Why him, Claire?" She swallowed hard, as if trying to choke down whatever words she was afraid to speak. "He makes me feel like I matter. Like I'm not just the person I am when I'm with you." I recoiled, the sting of her words landing like a slap. "So what am I? Not enough?" She paused, clearly struggling with the weight of what she had to admit. "It's not about you. It's about me. I've been lost. And Roger listens. He sees me." I wanted to rage, to demand answers. But something in her voice held me back. This raw, unexpected honesty. It was worse than any lie, worse than any betrayal. I stepped back, the questions flooding my mind. How long had this been happening? How long had I been blind? And what about me? What had I been to her? I opened my mouth to ask, but nothing came out. And still, she said nothing. Her words hung in the air, too heavy for me to grasp. I couldn't respond, not right away. I just stood there, trying to make sense of it all. The silence between us was suffocating, thick with things left unsaid. Claire looked down, unable to meet my eyes. She took a breath, her voice barely a whisper. I never meant for this. I wanted to shout, to demand answers, but the words were stuck in my throat. How could I process this? She wasn't just seeing Roger. She was emotionally tied to him, to someone I barely knew. I didn't want to hurt you, she added, but her voice lacked conviction, as if she was trying to convince herself. I finally found my voice, though it felt like a foreign thing. When did this start? When did you become involved with him? She shifted uncomfortably. It didn't start that way. At first, it was just talking, but then it became more. I clenched my fists, my patience running thin. More? What does that even mean, Claire? Why him? She hesitated. Her eyes flickered, avoiding mine. He sees me differently, in a way you haven't in a long time. Her words hit me harder than anything she'd said so far. She was telling me that I'd failed her, that I'd stopped seeing her. I could feel the anger rising, but there was a deeper ache beneath it. So what now? I asked, though I didn't really want to know the answer. What does this mean for us? She didn't answer. Instead, she just looked at me, her face a mixture of regret and something I couldn't place. The silence stretched, pulling us both in different directions. I didn't know what to do next. I had no idea how to fix this, or if it could be fixed. All I knew was that everything had changed, and I had no idea how to move forward. The silence was unbearable. Claire stood there, looking at me with eyes that seemed to plead for understanding, but I couldn't find any. How could I? Everything I thought I knew about her, about us, was shattered in an instant. I stepped back, trying to put some space between us. My mind raced with questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. Why hadn't she told me? How long had this been going on? And the biggest one, what now? I don't even know what to say to you anymore, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. I couldn't look at her anymore, couldn't face the reality of what she'd done. I never wanted this to happen, Claire said, her voice cracking. She sounded so small, so fragile. It almost made me feel sorry for her, but I couldn't. Not after everything. It's not about you. It's about me. I've been lost for so long. Roger, he made me feel like I mattered. I turned away from her, pacing the room. So what does that mean for us? You're telling me you've been unhappy, and I didn't even know? She nodded slowly. I never meant to hurt you. I swear. He listens to me. He sees me, like you used to. Her words stung deeper than I expected. I never stopped seeing you. I've always been here, Claire. Always. You were the one who pulled away. My voice faltered at the end, and I hated myself for it. I wasn't supposed to feel sympathy. I wasn't supposed to care anymore. I know, she whispered, and there was something so raw in her tone that it almost broke me. I've been pushing you away for so long. I didn't know how to fix it. I stopped pacing and turned to face her again. So what? You just replace me with him? You think that's going to fix things? Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't speak. She couldn't. The weight of what she'd done was too much, and I knew I wasn't ready to hear any more of her explanations. I don't know what to do with this, I said quietly, my voice betraying me. I don't know how to fix us. We stood there, in the middle of our living room, both unsure of what came next. But one thing was clear, I couldn't go back. I couldn't unhear what I had just learned, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. The days blurred together. I kept trying to talk to Claire, to make sense of everything, but she shut me out. She was there physically, but emotionally, she was a world away. And I couldn't stop thinking about Roger. He haunted me. The thought of him, of what he'd taken from me, ate at me. He wasn't some stranger. He was someone I'd seen at parties, at events. He wasn't a random guy. He was someone real, someone who had been there when I wasn't. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the fact that she chose him. When I wasn't enough, she ran to him. That fact made it hurt even more. She'd never said a word, never told me something was wrong. And now, looking back, I wondered how much I had missed. Had I really been so blind? The weight of those questions pressed down on me. I couldn't stop replaying everything. Every moment we had. Every time I thought we were fine. Was I not paying attention? Had I failed her? It destroyed my confidence. I didn't know who I was anymore. I was questioning everything about myself, wondering if I had become someone so easily replaceable. I needed answers, but when I looked at Claire, I didn't know if I was ready for them. She avoided my gaze, and when she did look at me, her eyes were distant, like I was no longer the person she trusted. The affair wasn't just the problem. It was everything that led to it, the things I ignored. How had she become someone else without me noticing? I kept telling myself there had to be something salvageable between us, but with each passing day, that seemed less and less likely. I threw myself into work, into anything I could control, but when the noise stopped, the silence returned. Claire was still here, but she wasn't the woman I married. I couldn't reach her, and it felt like I was losing everything I thought I had. Time passed, but it only made the space between Claire and me feel wider. We were two people in the same house, but not really together. I saw her every day, but it was like we were both walking around in different worlds, trapped in the same room, but unable to reach each other. I tried to act like everything was fine. I buried myself in work, in anything that could take my mind off the emptiness that was swallowing us both. But the quiet was unbearable. The way she would avoid me, the way she held her phone close like it was a secret I couldn't touch. It was a constant reminder that something had broken, something I couldn't fix. And then there was Roger. The thought of him never left me. Every time Claire and I passed each other, I imagined her with him. It consumed me, the idea that she had chosen him. How could I compete with that? What did he offer her that I couldn't? I wanted answers, but I didn't even know what to ask anymore. The more I thought about it, the more lost I felt. What could I possibly say to a woman who had already chosen someone else? Claire kept up the act. She still smiled at me, still made small talk, but I saw through it. The mask she wore didn't fool me. I could see the guilt, the way she avoided my gaze when she thought I wasn't looking. She wanted to act like nothing was wrong, but everything had changed, and she knew it. We both knew it. One night, I couldn't stand it anymore. I had to know. I needed her to face it, to stop pretending. I needed to ask her if there was anything left of the woman I married, or if I was just a shadow of the past. I tried to talk, but when I looked at her, I couldn't find the words. She just stood there, staring at me like she was waiting for me to speak. But nothing came out. And that's when I realized there was nothing left to say. She had already made her choice. I could ask all the questions I wanted, but it wouldn't change anything. The days turned into weeks, and I found myself just going through the motions. The house felt smaller, the air heavier. Claire was still here, still living her life next to mine, but it was as if we had both accepted that whatever we had was gone. I stopped asking her about Roger. It didn't matter anymore. She wouldn't answer me truthfully anyway, and even if she did, it wouldn't change anything. The damage had already been done. But there were moments, small, fleeting moments, when I caught her looking at me, not with the warmth I used to see, but with a kind of sadness, like she regretted everything, but wasn't sure how to fix it, or if she even wanted to. I wanted to scream, to demand that she explain herself, but part of me didn't want to hear the truth. What if the truth wasn't something I could live with? What if she didn't love me anymore? What if I was just the man she had once been with, the one who no longer fit into her world? I found myself spiraling. The questions, the doubts, the uncertainty. It was like a weight that I couldn't shake. I hated feeling like this, weak, uncertain. I used to be so sure of everything, of us. But now, nothing felt real anymore. One afternoon, as I was sitting alone in the living room, Claire came into the room. She hesitated at the doorway, like she wasn't sure if she should speak. I could feel the tension in the room, the way she was holding herself back, like she wanted to say something but couldn't. "Are we ever going to talk about this?" I asked, my voice rough with the emotion I had been holding back for so long. She stepped into the room slowly, her eyes downcast. "I don't know," she said, barely above a whisper. "I don't know what to say." I looked at her, the woman I thought I knew so well, and realized that we were both lost. She was waiting for me to give her some kind of answer, but I didn't have one. I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't even know if I wanted to anymore. The silence between us became unbearable. Claire had been distant for weeks, and I found myself slipping into a kind of numbness. I couldn't stop thinking about what she had done, about Roger, and about everything we had lost. But even more than that, I couldn't stop thinking about who we had become. We were strangers now, two people who had once shared everything, now just occupying the same space without a single word that truly connected us. I started staying out more. Work, errands, anything that kept me away from home. But it didn't help. The feeling of being trapped followed me, no matter where I went. It didn't matter if I was at the office or at the bar with a few colleagues. The thoughts of Claire, of her and Roger, kept circling my mind. I couldn't escape the feeling that I had failed. She had found something in him that I couldn't give her, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find a way to fix it. She wasn't the same woman anymore, and I wasn't the same man. There was no going back to the way things were. One night, after a long, exhausting day, I came home late. The house was quiet, too quiet. Claire was sitting on the couch, staring at the TV, but I could tell she wasn't really watching. Her mind was somewhere else, somewhere far away from me. I stood in the doorway, watching her for a moment, unsure of what to say or do. I wanted to reach out, to ask her if she still cared, but the words wouldn't come. It was like I had forgotten how to talk to her. Finally, she looked up, as if sensing my presence. Her eyes were tired, filled with an emptiness I hadn't seen before. "You've been gone a lot," she said, her voice soft but distant. "Is everything okay?" I didn't answer right away. Was everything okay? No, nothing was okay. But I didn't know how to tell her that. "I'm fine," I said instead, my voice flat, like it didn't matter anymore. We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. She didn't push. She didn't ask any more questions. It was like she had already accepted that we were both living in a world where the truth didn't matter. We were just trying to survive, day by day, with nothing but the ghosts of what we once had between us. Living with Claire had become a strange kind of routine, one that felt more like an endurance test than a relationship. We moved through the same space, side by side, but we weren't really together anymore. Every day, I felt her slipping farther away, and the more I tried to hold on, the more I realized I was losing her. I kept asking myself the same question. How had we gotten here? How had it all unraveled so quickly? I couldn't understand it. The woman I had married was becoming a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. It wasn't just the affair with Roger. It was everything that had led up to it. The silence, the growing distance between us. I hadn't seen it then, but now, it was all too clear. I tried to convince myself that things could be fixed, that somehow, we could put this all behind us and move on. But every time I looked at her, I saw the cracks. I saw the guilt in her eyes, the things left unsaid hanging in the air between us. I wasn't sure if she even wanted to fix it anymore. Maybe she had already moved on, in her own way. Maybe she was already done. It didn't help that my thoughts kept circling back to Roger. The idea of him, of her choosing him over me, gnawed at me constantly. He was older, yes, but that wasn't it. It was the fact that she had allowed herself to be pulled away by him, and I didn't even know why. What did he have that I didn't? What had I missed in our marriage? I couldn't escape it. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but every time I opened my mouth, the words felt stuck. I didn't even know how to ask the right questions anymore. It seemed pointless. The truth was, even if I knew, it wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't fix us. One evening, I found myself sitting in the living room, staring at the wall, lost in thought. I hadn't spoken to Claire all day. It was easier that way. At least in the silence, I didn't have to pretend that everything was okay. But the silence also felt like a weight, a pressure I couldn't escape. The house, which once felt like a home, now felt like a prison. She walked in, slowly, like she was trying not to disturb the stillness. I didn't look at her right away, but I could feel her standing there, waiting for me to say something. I didn't know what to say. What was there to say? We both knew what had happened. We both knew what she had done. "You've been distant," she said, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. I finally looked up at her. "Distant," I repeated, as if I needed to hear the word again to understand it. "You've been distant too, Claire. We're both distant." She didn't respond. She just stood there, looking at me, like she was waiting for me to say something else. But I didn't know what more there was to say. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I don't know how to fix this." It was the first time she'd admitted it out loud, and for a moment, I thought I might feel relief. But I didn't. I just felt emptier. How could we fix something when we didn't even know where to start? "I don't think I can keep pretending," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "I don't think I can keep living like this." Claire looked at me then, her eyes filled with something I couldn't read. Guilt, sadness, regret. Maybe all three. But it wasn't enough. I wasn't sure anything could be enough anymore. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. We were both broken, in different ways, and no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't fix each other. The days that followed felt like I was walking through a fog, trapped in some in-between state where nothing made sense. Claire and I barely spoke, and when we did, it was like we were reading from the same script we had rehearsed for months. Distant, careful, and full of words that didn't mean anything anymore. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing her, and every attempt I made to hold on to her only seemed to push her further away. I wasn't sure if I was trying to save our relationship, or if I was just clinging to a version of it that didn't exist anymore. I kept asking myself why. Why had it gone so far? Why couldn't I fix it? But there was no answer, just a growing void between us. A part of me wanted to fight for it, to fight for her, but another part, the part that had been broken by her betrayal, knew that whatever was left between us wasn't enough. We had already crossed a line we couldn't come back from. Claire had become a stranger, someone I didn't know and didn't recognize. The woman I had once loved so deeply was no longer here. She was somewhere else, lost in the arms of someone else, while I was left to piece together the wreckage of a life I thought I understood. I began packing my things. I didn't know where I would go or what I would do, but staying in that house felt like a betrayal to myself. There was nothing left to salvage, no more hope to cling to. And as much as I hated to admit it, I knew that I had to let go. When Claire found me in the living room, packing the last of my things, she didn't say anything. She just stood in the doorway, her eyes filled with the same sorrow that had been there for months. I couldn't look at her. Not anymore. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but the words felt empty. I had heard them too many times before, and they meant nothing now. I finished packing in silence. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold in front of me. Was this really happening? Was I really leaving her? When I was done, I turned to face her. She still hadn't moved. We just looked at each other for a moment. Two people who had once shared everything, now reduced to nothing but strangers. I wanted to say something. I wanted to ask her why, or scream at her, or beg her to fix this. But I couldn't. There was no point. There was nothing left to say that would make a difference. "I'll be gone in a few hours," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "I'll leave the keys on the counter." She nodded, but still didn't speak. And with that, I turned and walked out of the house, the only home I had known for so long. As I stepped out into the cold night, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders, but I also felt empty, like a part of me was gone forever. Maybe it had always been this way. Maybe I had just been too blind to see it. But the truth was, Claire and I were both lost, and there was nothing more to be done. I didn't know where I was going next, but for the first time in months, I felt free. Free from the lies, free from the silence, free from the ghost of the life I had tried to hold on to. Maybe someday I'd find my way back to myself. But for now, I was walking away, and that was all I could do.